Okay guys, I usually don't post videos back to back, but after reading the comments on the last video, I thought maybe I should try and get a little more current because there were people making a lot of suggestions and good suggestions, of course, but that video or the content was about 3 weeks old. So I thought maybe I should get a little more current. I'm never totally current. I'm always at least about a week out. If you see a video where it says, well, I'm going out of town for 5 days, you can pretty well bet that I've been back for 5 days before that video gets posted. I wanted to address a few comments. There were suggestions of putting some kind of plate on the front of that crank to try and turn it over, but I was hesitant to do that. I really didn't want any more pressure. I came up on that tight spot, and I didn't want to force that because I was concerned there might be some rust in the cylinders, and I didn't want to break the rings. And I did have to beef up my pry bar just because it was a cheapo thing that was flexing a lot, and I beefed it up just to make it easier to turn it over, although I didn't want any more pressure on that hard spot. It just made it easier to turn in the other areas. Talking about rust in the cylinder, a lot of people suggested to get a scope, and I had a scope, and I really highly recommend this. You can pick this up on eBay or Amazon. I forget which place I got it, but I think the auto parts store charges a couple $100, maybe more, for one of these things. And you can get this wonderful piece of technology. This little piece of machinery is backlit. You can stick it down the cylinder, and it takes video or pictures. And you can bend it all around and look wherever you want to look. And it's $10. Get you one. You just can't go wrong. Jeff Bradshaw told me about it, and I didn't realize they were so cheap. Anyway, I wanted to also give a special thanks to the gentleman who noticed that there was a cotter pin missing on the rocker shaft. What an eye, man. I didn't notice it, but I fixed it. And he said if that cap comes off the end, well, then you lose oil pressure. And, of course, we know that's not a good thing. Okay, there was a lot of thought about how that water got into the oil pan. And, of course, most people thought, as I did, that it might have gone down through that open valve that was stuck, and then rusted up that cylinder and somehow seeped by the rings. And although that's kind of, I don't know if it ever would have made it all the way through. It probably would just rusted up because there was only about a third of a cup of water maybe at the very bottom of the pan when I first opened that plug. But where the water got in was through a hole in the belly pan underneath the intake manifold. I'm pretty sure that's where the emissions pipe bolts on. I remember the old 235 or the old 216 Chevys had those downspouts. Dumped the emissions out into the air instead of reburning them. So I think that's what that hole is. But that's where the water got in, and that's why all the internals are so nice and clean, and no rust anywhere inside that engine. When I realized there was no rust, I took a different approach, and that's what this video is about. But before we watch the video, I wanted to show you this picture. This is me and R Peak when I was probably about 2 years old. I guess, I don't know, it looks like a little fat little 2-year-old to me, but this is before R Peak grew his beard out. And you can see at that age I was already rocking my overalls, and I wanted to be just like R Peak when I grew up. And now that I'm all grown up, I'm more like him than I ever thought I would be. But I really cherish that time that I spent with R Peak back when I was about 2 years old there. And, he's kind of a Ford guy, and that shows up in this picture as well. You can tell that. So, all right, I just thought I'd share that with you. And let's get on with the video. Thanks, everybody. Now, this engine has an external oil filter on it. And from the looks of the plumbing, it looks like something I would do. But anyway, it has a hose that runs from the engine up to that external filter, and then from the filter back down to the engine. Now, isn't that interesting? Just think what a fella could do with that. 65 Road King, and I think I even complimented him, mentioned to him that he's real good at that real tiny little intricate work, you know, and I'm not. I'm not good at that stuff. I'm more like, you know, take some big pieces of metal and this and beat them into submission and weld them up and heat them up and bend them and bang on them and beat on them, you know. I had a girlfriend one time tell me in my shop, I'm like a bull in a china shop. She said, well, this is my china shop and I'm the bull, so I guess that's all right. But yeah, I know that about myself. I'm not that good at that little tiny stuff, but we'll do the best we can. Uh-oh, peepers. These peepers. What you doing, Josh? What are you doing? What are you looking for? Well, I just put the pan back on that thing, got it all washed up. Took it over to the parts washer, cleaned it out good. No metal, not even any gray mud in it. Looked real good.
So I got that cleaned up, got the pan kind of stuck back on there, and it's 1:45 in the morning, almost 2 a.m. and I got to go look up torque specs. Well, I don't know if you can see that or not, but I pumped up about 20 pounds of oil pressure right there. So let me tell you what I'm doing. I just cringe at the notion, even the thought of those main bearings being totally dry, drained, have this thing set for years and years, and absolutely no oil in those bearings. And I just, I just can't bear to think about that dry bare metal grinding against dry bare metal the first few times, or maybe even several times, or many times that this thing turns over before it gets oil pressure. So I was asking Robo Frank if you can pull the distributor and put a shaft in there like you do on a Chevy and spin it around with a drill, and he says no, that's different. You got to take the gear out that runs on the cam shaft, I guess, and take get the lower part of the shaft out. It's two pieces. There's one down below, as I understand it, as well, and then maybe somehow I don't know if that's the pump. I guess maybe you can drive the pump then, but it sounded like something I didn't, never had any experience with, I know for sure, and it sounds like maybe I don't want to mess with it. I don't want to get into it. So, not knowing what I'm doing, I decided to go another route, and I still don't know what I'm doing, but it worked. So what I did was, this thing had an external oil filter on it. You can see right here. So it just had hoses that run down there to where it connects into the block, and then ran up to this filter, and you mount this somewhere, and you got an easy spin-on filter that way, instead of a big old canister like that one over there with a big sock type filter in it, or paper, or whatever it might be. So what I did was I took an oil pump out of a small block Chevy, an internal pump, and I adapted it to be, I converted it to an external pump. So this is it right here. So I built a little plate to go over that, and I built a gasket, and I had to do some JB welding there to partition part of that off so that it wouldn't dump out somewhere else, and so it would all go into the hose. And then built myself a driver. I took an old size 13 socket, an old stray, and that I didn't need, and I put a little, where are you guys at? There you go. Okay, can you see now? Little socket, and I put a little flat bar in there to fit down on that, and the socket goes around the outside so it doesn't fall off and doesn't slip off, and it'll stay engaged like that. And then I just welded a piece of round stock on the other end and made it so it fits in the drill, and that's what made it spin up and make oil pressure. So I'm liking that. I'm liking that a lot, and I could probably, with a little better system here, I could probably get more pressure. This is kind of flimsy, and it's kind of wanting to tip over and spill on me, and so I quit. But I've got oil pressure, and I got some oil in those bearings, and I'm real happy about that. Yeah, real happy about that. So now I'm not afraid to put the starter in there and spin it over a little bit, and maybe even build up some more oil pressure. Okay, that's about enough for now. I think I'm going to call it a half a day. It's almost 3:30 in the morning. I've been at it all day. I just couldn't I just couldn't stop. I saw no reason to. But now I do, because I'm tired. All right. See y'all down the road. Appreciate you.
Okay, after she built up oil pressure, an amazing thing happened. Tune in next time and hear old Waylon say,
Okay, boys and girls, fellers and fellerettes, we have reached a milestone in history. I have made a full rotation. See the mark on the flywheel? That means she's been all the way around. Oh, I'm pretty happy about that.